some of the comments that he made yesterday. I can't put myself through it. It was just a lot written by a number of news organizations that pointed out misrepresentations, let's just put it this way, which, by the way, is not necessarily unique to this president. The president, when making his address to the joint session of Congress, was sworn in and agreed to tell the truth under penalty of contempt of Congress citations. Maybe we would have less of a campaign style delivery and more of a report to the Congress, which in fact was the original intent of the framers. The Constitution requires the president to report annually about the state of the union, but it doesn't require him to give an address to Congress. This spectacular that we see all the time. But now it's become part of what makes politics very interesting, doesn't it? So I, as many of you, watched it, and I, as many of you probably did, I took some notes, and I'm going to share a little bit, with certainly not totally inclusive. And I want to concentrate on the programs rather than, well, just, you don't have to limit your commentary to the programs, but the programs rather than the pronouncements of great successes by this administration, which is, as I said, kind of campaign stuffing. But what is he actually proposing as we enter another year of his second time serving as President of the United States? So he's proposing a federal retirement plan for private workers, which would give private sector workers without employer-sponsored plans access to a retirement system like the federal thrift savings plan. So that would be a $1,000 annual government match would be included. He is proposing a ban on corporate home buying. He called on Congress to codify an executive order that bans institutional investors from buying single-family homes. The idea behind this is to make housing more accessible for individuals. Once again, Obamacare is in the crosshairs. Now he wants to call it the Great Healthcare Plan, a plan to replace the Affordable Care Act subsidies with direct payments to people's health savings accounts, which would allow them to buy their own insurance. Abby, we're going to give you a hat today because you are our special guest, having actually attended the State of the Union, and I appreciate you participating. He talked about drug pricing codification. He's asking Congress to support what he calls his most favored nation drug pricing policy and make it a law that would match the lowest prices paid by other developed countries. He made a pledge to protect ratepayers. This is a big deal, in my opinion. It would require big tech companies like the ones that are developing these AI data centers that just suck the power to build their own power plants. The idea is to prevent rising electricity costs for local communities. I did not hear him say this, but I would hope that any excess power that they produced would go to the grid for the communities surrounding. That's my vision of it anyway. And he, of course, wants to get congressional approval for his new 10% global tariff, potentially rising to 15%, which uses, unlike his original tariffs that were stricken down by the Supreme Court, Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which allows for the tariffs to be authorized by the executive for 150 days, I believe it is, after which Congress must approve. So he's telling Congress, I want you to approve. He talked about something that he's talked about a lot before, the Save America Act. It's legislation which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. He talked about a Stop Insider Trading Act, which actually got applause, and I thought, well, they're applauding him, but they're never going to pass it. But it's, maybe I'm wrong, but it's a ban on congressional stock trading. The idea is to prevent lawmakers from profiting from non-public information. Ironic, given the allegations that he is profiting in this administration and he profited in his previous administration from his position as President of the United States. Allegations. And he named the Vice President as the anti-fraud czar to lead a war on fraud, to root out corruption in federal spending, to help balance the budget. He wants the full and immediate restoration of Homeland Security funding. Of course, he points a finger at the Democrats for that, the partial shutdown. He announced approval of a $1 trillion military budget. And maybe most importantly, he stated he would never allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. And he said that military options were being weighed amid the ongoing crisis. So the State of the Union address was the longest in history, 1 hour and 48 minutes and a few seconds. About half the Dems in the House and Senate boycotted. Now, in a moment, all of you are going to have an opportunity to give your observations. I thought it would be interesting to grab a couple of quotes from Republicans and Democrats to see what their observations are and to show what we already know, that they are looking at things from opposite ends of the prism for sure. So let's start with Speaker Johnson. Quote, the speech was excellent. I think it's one of the best. Speaker Johnson on the Democratic lack of decorum. Tlaib and Omar and a few others really brought shame upon their party and upon themselves. Not mentioned by him, but notable since he made that comment. Congressman Al Green was escorted out of the House chamber just minutes into the State of the Union for holding a sign that read, quote, black people aren't apes. Republicans are expressing disappointment over Democrats not standing up to support some of Trump's comments on things that were relatively apolitical. And then the Spanberger Democratic response, quote, we did not hear the truth from our president, so let's speak plainly and honestly, and let me ask you, the American people watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at home and abroad? Is the president working for you? Schumer refers to the State of the Union as the state of delusion. Senator Kelly said, quote, I wanted him to know, that he failed to throw me in jail. We made eye contact there 3 or 4 times. He knew I was there. And on a real positive note, which I hope was embraced from both sides of the aisle, the president said that Connor Hellebuck, the goaltender for the gold medal winning U.S. men's Olympic hockey team, will be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And that's pretty much the commentary on the commentary from the politicos. But I'm less interested in what they have to say and far more interested in what you have to say. And we're going to start today with our representative, who we dispatched to Washington, D.C. for the sole purpose of sitting in the galley. Well, her sole purpose was not that. Her sole purpose was to rub elbows with the hockey players. So, Abby, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Scott.
On, and I have my daughter.
Boy, introduction. Okay, this was my first State of the Union. I have been in the gallery during speeches and different points in history, but never for a State of the Union. I had the good fortune to start it off with going to the pre-party that they do at the Library of Congress. I was the guest of a member, so I was not on the Senate side of that pre-party, but it's just to be noted that if any of you ever get a chance to roam around the Library of Congress, each room I've gone into is more spectacular than the next. And I was in a room that was called the members' room, where they would gather when the library was first built. And we left there and went through the underground tunnel into Congress. So again, that's just a side note that it's a very cool, interesting part of our history and what's in Washington, and definitely worth checking out if you're there. It was, a who's who up in the gallery, and kind of a lot of confusion going through the whole security apparatus that they had. I was seated in an area. I was a guest of a Democrat, and I thought, I didn't know how they would break it down. But as I was actually seated next to a Republican member of Congress's wife, and next to her were guests of a Democrat, and and so on. It was totally mixed. I sat on the front row, and I sat with pretty much, I don't know if you remember how everything laid out, but I sat right by where Talib and Omar were. I was actually the gallery right above them. So one of the things I will say is when I started to see how animated and everything that they were doing, whatever photographs were taken of my gallery section, my face was usually looking at them, because I just was in just utter disbelief of what I was seeing. So I tried to see the reactions in the room of some of the people as he was speaking, but a lot of my attention was as they were having their antics. I did watch Green as he was escorted out. There's something I noted that I kept looking in the press today to see if anyone picked up on this, but he had his sign when Trump came in. He was kind of pushing the sign almost into the president. They pushed him away. I don't know if any of that got on TV. But ultimately, someone from security came over, stood next to him, was like whispering in his ear, talking to him. I have no idea what was said. But then 3 members of Congress from Texas came over, and you have to tell me, Gary, if any of this got shown on any of the TV footage, came and stood in front of him. One I recognize was the member who represents Fort Worth, but there was 3 of them, and they kind of blocked him, and then there was kind of a bit of a movement between the 3 of them and him with the sign, and then next thing you know, security was escorting him out. So, that was literally right in front of me, but I thought it was pretty interesting that they must have known I'm sure they knew he was doing this, because they prearranged that the 3 members that would block the sign were also from the Texas delegation. So just wanted to add that. For me, notably, I'm not going to rank the speech. There were things that I loved, that I stood up and loudly applauded. And there were things that I squirmed. I saw people around me squirming and just, a concern where he was going to go in the speech. When the hockey players came in, I was praying that would be the unifying moment. I thought if anything could do it, I didn't know all the awards that were about to happen, but I really had my hopes that everybody would stand up loudly with that hockey team. And majority did, but there were a number of Democrats that did not. I didn't, and so that was also interesting what you said, that it was half of the delegation, because it seemed it was pretty packed on that side also. It wasn't like lots of missing seats. So curious what the final number was.
I'm curious too, because that was what was reported pretty extensively at the beginning, but maybe more people came in ultimately than they were reporting. So I don't know whether that's accurate, and I should have been more clear about that.
Yeah, it didn't seem like half was missing. I mean, it was pretty packed there. There were a few Republicans, like Kat Carmack, that purposely were over on the Republican side. Also, like I noticed, Mike Lawler was sitting with Josh Gottheimer. There were some that are friends with each other, and so he was over on the Dem side. There are certain Democrats that stood, I wouldn't say 100% of the time with the Republicans, but John Fetterman was up and applauding a hell of a lot. And there were some I would say some of the senators were joining in. Some of the moderate Democrats were joining in on the applause on some of the issues. But the hockey team, it was, again, amazing to me. Whatever the marching orders were, not to applaud. I mean, there are often, and when you go to see a speech at Congress, there's ambassadors that come in and they won't applaud for anything. Also, the Supreme Court,
Gary, I am a political
they
science
don't react
student
in
in
any way.
Hyderabad.
But these
I
were
am
members of
a
Congress.
trans
So that was
activist. I am
that
also
part.
a liberal
That little
socialist.
part was disturbing,
I
but
have been watching with deep
grandeur
concern
and the
Donald
excitement
Trump's
of the hockey
presidency
team,
as he
that was a
violates
beautiful
our
moment to
constitution,
see that. And they came in
imprisons and
behind
kills
Trump.
our
I'm sure you
people in
saw
the
that
street
on
illegally,
TV.
and forces people to show identification
The
to vote
awarding
in our
of
country.
the medals was just exhilarating, and also the Purple Heart. One of the recipients.
I'm about to
of the
prank
medal
call
was
this
sitting here where I
clubhouse
was
room.
sitting. So that it was just
an Indian
incredible
girl.
to be in the same room as all of them. Also with the 100-year-old veteran. I mean, just from a patriotic standpoint, those were just.
He didn't look 100 years old, by the way. He was pretty spry. I know he needed some assistance standing, and they steadied him when he sat down. But for 100 years of age, he really looked, pretty fit.
I mean, that was just a pretty incredible moment. But once again, there were people that did not applaud it. It was disturbing, and I'll get to their screaming in a second, and they're yelling, but it was disturbing when comments about supporting the firemen, and you saw people refusing to stand and applaud. I mean, there were just things that it did not make sense. They're just American issues that were upsetting. And also, when you see someone with such valor getting the Medal of Honor that had his legs shot up, and they refused to stand for it, like that was just bad. The yelling that came out of Tlaib and Omar was just horrible. Look, Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't in there, and I'm sure I would have felt the same way, because I hated when she did it. The decorum, it was just wrong. And what they were yelling, they were cursing. There were curse words. There was I don't really think it's appropriate in here to repeat all the stuff, but there was just some awful things that were coming out of their mouths. The squirming, let me just back up. There was other people reacting and kind of, I wouldn't say yelling, well, somewhat yelling at him when he talked about the stock and the trading of stock. You saw a reaction from many members on the Democratic side, like started being vocal. But the majority of the reactions, I would say, came from Tlaib and Omar. Tlaib had some kind of stuff in front of her that she had in that little cubby that they have in front of their seats that might have been, I don't know if it was signage or, whatever she came prepared with. But I did notice that. I did not like when he spoke about the Supreme Court. I was very uncomfortable with that. And that's where I'm noticing other Republicans were around me that were also clearly uncomfortable and, in that kind of a squirming sense of please don't go there. Just please don't go there. And that I would say was an uncomfortable moment. I thought that he would speak more about Iran than he did. I actually was hoping for an even stronger statement about it. I loved that he talked about the hostages. Obviously, I was up and cheering on that one. And the first person I noticed up before even the Republicans was John Fetterman. I mean, he was just ecstatic with that. And, go through the different points of contention.
Indian girls on the stage! Indian girl!
Where you saw the moderate Democrats in the room joining in with the Republicans. And that actually felt really good to see. Because you felt like there's some issues where
He's an
we
Indian
are
girl
moving
now.
forward as a nation together. And that also piggybacks on a lot of those people were the Problem Solvers Caucus, the people that the 28 Dems and 28 Rs sits together and work on legislation. So that needs to go noticed and not unnoticed as people talk about division, that there's also camaraderie that exists and issues that they are aligned with. There was interesting celebrities there. The guy from Shark Tank, what's his name? O'Leary, I think is his last name. He was sitting around us. Some different, I met the candidate who's running for governor in Pennsylvania. She was sitting by us. And just look around. I could see the people where Melania was, and most of the people he was calling on or noting were sitting in that area. And that's you can get it, ask me any questions about it. It's pretty exhilarating to experience it, to see all the faces in person, especially for me, the Supreme Court justices. I'm bummed that they 5 of them weren't there, but still super exciting to see them in person. And also, the other thing that I expected more applause for was Marco Rubio when he thanked him. I just thought some of the senators sitting on the D side would have been a little more, appreciative of Rubio. But that's basically what I have to say. If you want to get into substance on any of this stuff, I will. I just thought I'd give you more of an overview of what it was like to be in there. Thanks.
Traditionally, when
Never had one lesson.
differences, and for whoever it is that's being highlighted, no matter who the president is, whether the president is a Democrat or Republican. And I thought it had wrong as well to not honor the those who did not. The Obama winner and the hockey team and those kind of feel-good moments
Oh man, but the order is there. How did I get put up there so early? Okay. All right. Well, it's nice to use blow by blow. Thank you, Abby. Fantastic. Always nice to hear live correspondent from the great critical thinking forum. Yeah, I mean, look, overall, I fell asleep during the speech, largely because I get up early, but had to go back and dial in this morning. As far as specifics, I mean, look, there's stuff that all of us, we're gonna, as Abby said, even she was squeamish at points, but ultimately, I think this. I think what Trump is good at sometimes is taking the 80-20 issue and putting it against the Democrats. He doesn't always play the culture war well, but he played it well last night. And I think that this is a time when the country is not on his side on things like immigration, on things like the tariffs. I mean, vast swaths of polling from all sources tell us that. But when you get the opposition to look extreme, when you get things that everybody, is generally supportive of, like the hockey team or the 100-year-old veteran or whatever, and you get the opposition to write things, op-eds that say the hockey team should refuse to go and all this stuff. It's an instance where I think he played the Democrats pretty well on this one. I think he made the Democrats look less in touch with mainstream America than he is, which he needed to do because I think he was on the ropes on these kind of things. I mean, when you look at the polling and the tariffs, look at the polling on ICE, and his polling in general, people are not with the president right now, but they were last night. I mean, the CNN post-game approval had the approval at 66%. Now, look, that's slightly loaded because we all know that in contemporary political, in this climate, generally the people that watch the State of the Union are people supportive of the president, right? It didn't used to be that way.
Well, here's the bigger issue when it comes to that, Scott, and that is a president's approval rating generally does get a bump following a State of the Union because he's selling himself and his administration. If there's one thing this president can do, he can sell, and especially when the product is Donald Trump. And
but I think that what we will see, though, is we will see that like polls that come out subsequent to over the next few days will not be as high as that CNN like immediate.
Right. So that's
people watching it.
Right. So also typically that bump doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
And people forget. It fades away when reality starts hitting them again. And on the issues, the core issues that bother people, when they go to do their weekly shopping, some of that illusion of camaraderie with the president based on how he presented himself may dissipate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, but all in all, I think last night overall was probably something like a win for Trump. I mean, and he needed a win, right? Because things have not been going well. So I think last night was a bright spot for the administration in what has been, a news cycle that's not been bright. So there you go.
What about the various assessments that I, as I said earlier, purposely didn't go into because it's just difficult to go point by point. But I'm sure everybody saw and heard things that they kind of went, huh? I don't think that's actually true, Mr. President. How does that counterbalance the immediate after effects of a bit of euphoria?
Yeah, I mean, I think fact checking isn't what it used to be. And I think people will go into their silos and people will look for the confirmation bias they want. So I don't know that the fact checking and that sort of journalistic homework will make a big difference.
Thank you for that, Scott. We'll go to Marshall, followed by Howard. Marshall, you with us? Yeah, there you are.
I mean, I thought he exaggerated a lot or lied a lot. But I generally agree with Scott's take. The administration needed a win. This came across as a win. They did a good job of making. What's up, little man? They did a good job of it. You say hi to the dog? Okay. Sorry, little kids from next door are looking at my dog's door. They both bark. Her name is Cora. And his name is Ronan. Anyway, what do you call it? I think overall Scott was right. The administration needed a win, and it got a win. I also think it was right. Did a good job making the Democrats look more extreme. But I was not a big fan of the blustering. I'll say that for it. I really, that just rubbed me the wrong way. I would rather have him give, as you said, Gary, a report to the country rather than a sales pitch.
Although, in fairness, as I pointed out in my opening salvo, he did have a number of proposals, whether one agrees with them or not. He does have a vision. At least he articulated a vision that he says that he has.
The other thing I found really cool was the awarding of the Medal of Honor. Right? Like, I thought that was super cool. I wish it had been done in a White House ceremony with a little more solemnity, but those guys get the Medal of Honor. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, the president is a showman, and he certainly showed that last night in that moment and others. Thank you, Marshall. We'll now go to India, followed by Perusian.
Hello, Gary. I am in Hyderabad. I listened to the State of the Union, and it was very impressive. I took down some notes. First, I was very impressed with the pilot who led the raid in Venezuela, and he had multiple gunshot wounds to his leg. And Mr. Trump, he really, in great description, described the bloody horror on this poor man's leg who was standing up on the crutches. Also, the Coast Guard rescue diver who so bravely saved 150 people. Also, I will say that the Army pilot got the Medal of Honor, which was remarkable. And the Coast Guard rescue diver who saved 150 girls in the Texas flood was remarkable. Also, Trump said that he got NATO to increase spending from 3% to 5%, which was impressive because the U.S. national deficit is very high from spending over $1 trillion a year on the military-industrial complex. Also, Trump clearly framed the Democrats and said that they are the ones responsible for the border crisis and the million illegal alien criminals who invaded your country. Also,
Yes, but I just want to point out that is inaccurate based on the fact checking that I read today. But he did say that. You're correct.
Also, the little girl that was nearly killed by the truck driving 65 miles per hour into the back of her car, nearly killed that little girl, and that little girl was there. That was very exciting to see that she was doing well. And in summation, America, in the State of the Union, America is very strong, and Trump is America. And I am from India. As a trans man, I am concerned that America is going to stop supporting the LGBTQ and trans community because of Donald Trump and who the Republicans and conservatives are, who are a bunch of racists and bigots, and they are very nasty people. And the Democrats must do everything they can do to try to get Donald Trump out of the White House, and that means impeaching him. And I am sorry to say that the one thing that Mr. President Trump did not talk about are the Epstein files. And the Epstein files continue to show a network of sexual predators, including Bill Clinton and Bill Gates. And Bill Gates...
Well, we do not know that Bill Clinton and Bill Gates are sexual predators, so I have to stop you there. Just because their names are in the file does not mean
Gary,
that they
Bill
are
Gates,
sexual predators.
Bill Gates today admitted that he had affairs with 2 Russian women. And
Yes,
these Russian women...
Women. And a lot of men affairs. I'm not saying that that's excusable, but a lot of men have affairs, right?
Well,
You probably know people who have had affairs.
I am a gay man, and I have affairs with many men, but I am also not friends with Jeffrey Epstein and billionaires who go around trafficking children.
But that doesn't
Because
mean that
Ghislaine
everybody
Maxwell,
who is a friend of Jeffrey Epstein.
Gary, Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail for sexual trafficking.
Okay. Thank you for that. You're correct that he did not mention, and there were some of the survivors in the gallery, and he should have mentioned it, in my opinion, as well. Abby, did you want to jump in there?
No, it's actually interesting because I was looking around, trying to figure out where they were sitting. There was, by the way, there was one thing I did want to mention. There was one arrest. I don't know if you guys saw that happen. They did arrest one person in the gallery. That was Ilhan Omar's guest. And she was protesting, wouldn't sit down, and was just, I was not in the gallery I was in, but was protesting. The security asked her several times, and then they removed her.
I think that if I were a guest of a member of Congress, although that member of Congress might have endorsed what she did, but I endorse that member of Congress. I would qualify. If they tell me to, sit down and shut up, I would sit down and shut up. It's not the place for that kind of activity. There's a place for everything. But thank you for that, Dad. We'll go to Perusian, followed by Madison.
Hello, Gary. Hello, everybody. Actually, I just came up with more than a question as own analysis about how the State of the Union speech of him was. As you, of course, I think understand, as a person with Iranian roots, I'm interested or very curious to understand what is your thinking.
Well, let me turn this tables and ask you: were you surprised, as Abby and I were, that he gave scant attention to Iran? He mentioned it, but he didn't really. We were told by the White House before the speech that he was going to lay out his plan for Iran, and then he didn't. Were you as disappointed as other observers who are not Iranian about?
No, honestly not. I am mature enough to understand that such a step is also important to
are deployed toward Iran. Tensions are rising, and the 2026 midterm elections are less than 9 months away.
Well, who the hell was that?
change.
I was looking at something else, so don't worry about it.
I'm finished. I'm not going to steal your time long. But I've heard, of course, what he was saying about his will to not allow Iran to be atomic or nuclear power, the country with nuclear capacities or that. But the Iranian government already in 2 or 3 cases spoke about that they are not going, or they're officially not wanting to do that, who believes that it is his case or whatsoever. Maybe even I am not believing that. But my question to you, dear audience, or dear speaker, is what is your analysis? For me, it is important and interesting to know what is your analysis, your feeling about what is going, what his next step would be maybe.
With regard to that was reported, so we speak pretty extensively at the beginning, but maybe know that, so no harm, no foul. But that's how we roll here. So Perusian, we did a whole session on that yesterday, and we will do additional sessions specifically on Iran in the future. So stay tuned for that. Madison, followed by El Normo.
Can I go after that?
You can go when I get to you, unless you keep interrupting, and then you can't. How's that for an answer? Madison, followed by El Normo.
Sir, I did not interrupt. But go.
Hey, Gary. Yeah, that's the way the rules work in the room. Thanks for the room, as always, Gary. I wasn't really impressed by the speech. I know that some people were. That it was well polished. And it was kind of built on distortion. Like the real things got twisted just enough to sound like wins that don't actually exist in everyday people's lives. A lot of people supporting it will admit there's no real substance, but I guess they don't care about that. As long as it sounds strong, it looks good, feels like a win, and that's what this was built for, optics. The Democrats acting out, I don't agree with that. Don't give them a show. It's harder. But also, you don't get to stand up there and call everybody else liars and then expect respect for the truth. That's kind of crazy to me. And it's crazy that the word decorum would even come out of any Republican's mouth, period. So some of the things that stood out to me were, when you talked about drug prices being basically, I'm sorry.
You can think your colleagues are wrong and still expect decorum, right? Just because Joe Wilson shouted you lying didn't mean every Republican in the chamber approves of that behavior.
Well, I was talking about the administration itself and the things that he does on a daily basis.
You
Well,
want
what's
Anything.
that
You
have to do
wanna-
with people cursing
Can
and
I
screaming?
finish my submission, please? I don't think that's how this room works, but
No, that is how this room works. Fucking Marshall interrupts everybody. That's what Marshall does.
Yeah, I mean, I was reporting on people cursing and screaming.
Hey, Shake, are you on the return flight right
Which
now?
occurred a lot.
Not just
So that was when I used the word decorum. And I'm also a Republican, and I would call out anyone doing that at the State of the Union or in the chambers
It's
of
possible.
Congress.
It's
And that
possible,
kind
but
of
I haven't heard
form
anything.
was very inappropriate and very distasteful, and they were also cursing, a lot of cursing. So I'm the one who used the term, and that's why I used it.
Are you hearing anything positive from everyone else about the State of the Union?
Madison.
Yeah, there's some positive things.
oh no, you got the power. Keep it.
Oh, you don't want to talk? Okay, we'll go to El Normo. El Normo, followed by Hermes.
Yeah. It seems to me that the purpose of the State of the Union is communication. We want our chief executive to let us know how the country is doing. And
Don, you
I
should
think
title the room.
for that purpose, this State of the Union was really good. It was really good communication. I think that in difficult or uncertain times, we need to be reassured. We need to be uplifted. We need some optimism. We need a sense of leadership. We need a firm hand. And the president seemed to project I think it's important for the State of the Union to celebrate America. He did that. I think it's the president is a showman. And somehow he figured out that showmanship is an essential quality of a leader. And this was a good show. I was delightfully surprised by the hockey team appearing, the men's, obviously, Olympic hockey team. I was thrilled, actually. I was moved by the 100-year-old, I think he was a congressional medal, no, it couldn't have been congressional, the Presidential Medal of Honor recipient.
No, it was the Medal of Honor.
Oh, it was congressional? Yeah, okay. Well, I was very...
Medal of Honor. That gentleman, I said 2 people received the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Right.
That was 100 years old, and the pilot flew the lead chopper into the Venezuela grave.
Right. Really moving and really important and insufficiently, I think, celebrated in our usual quotidian lives. Did you see the smile on that 100-year-old man? I mean, it was just really, really moving. There were also, in addition to those moving and emotional moments, there were some, I think, manipulative moments. I don't know why having the mother of a girl who passed away stand up and be applauded. I don't get that. Maybe that applause is a nervous reaction. I'm not in favor of demonizing immigrants and saying or implying that they are criminal. When I mean criminal, I mean violent criminals. I'm not talking about the fact that they may not be legal or here legally. I'm not in favor of that. But if the president is, I think, one of the most responsible for putting immigration on the agenda, and having tried and failed to form it congressionally, he is, I think, executing his mandate to enforce immigration law a little bit more stringently than the previous administration. He was asked to do it by 77 million Americans, and he's doing it. And it was his idea. I think he's overdoing it in some cases, but nevertheless, and I think the reaction against this is foolish and also in some cases illegal. So, but all of that aside, I think I also don't understand these tariffs still. I think it's a wacky idea. But that's Trump for you. He's got some wacky ideas. When there's a serious world problem, you can flip a coin. Either he's going to solve it in an amazing way, as he did with the Abraham Accords and with the getting back our hostages. Just amazing and certainly worthy of recognition. Or he's going to do something wacky like play around with the tariffs. Did you want to say something? Okay. So in sum, I spaced out just for a few minutes. I was also in Clubhouse listening to the responses. But in general, it was a good show. And when I'm sorry, I may be talking about something unrelated. You said you have a hot mic or something? Okay. Anyway, it was a really good show. And it was, it gave me that Morning in America feeling, like that uplifting, optimistic feeling that you sometimes got from Ronald Reagan, sometimes from Bill Clinton, to other great communicators. I got less of that Morning in America feeling from Barack Obama, but I did like him, especially in his first term as a president, and I felt he was also a good communicator. So just goes up, I would say, among the top State of the Union addresses. Thanks for the opportunity to share that, Gary and everybody.
Hermes, are you there?
Yes. I was just looking for the cue. Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everyone. I heard the address, but what I liked more was the response that the Democrats had. I forget her name. And you guys probably know her name. But when she got up there,
You go on to the response. Give us what you think of the actual speech, and then talk about the response.
Sure. So I think it was full of fluff, for lack of better words. I think the people that had received awards, that's always a good thing. I would have loved to have seen the volunteer rescue workers that saved people in Texas and in California, especially in Texas when we had that, the flood, right? Because there came a lot of Mexican rescue workers came over the border to help us. That would have been nice. I don't know if there's some kind of award that we can give to immigrants. Marshall might know, but that's my 2 cents. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hermes. We'll now go to Murad, followed by Gene.
Gary, we have respect to Marshall, Scott, Abba, and Howard. Gary, the admirers and appreciations was so great
is probably the last thing you want to
by
see if you were
President Donald Trump.
This is a
But if I want to give an score to Donald Trump as the President of the United States, I give this score 16. Because and the
lizard.
score 17
snails, and
is
as you can see, they have
acceptable
these huge
for the United
pearl-like
States of
crushing teeth that they use
President.
to crunch these snails.
In
And they also
comparing
use
with
that tongue
the
to move the snail
State
all
of the
around
Union of
and spit out
2015,
all the shell.
it was 16.
You'd be surprised how
And
little of that shell they
2015 was
actually eat.
19.
Cute. The prime example of
It
him
was 16
spitting
and
out some of that shell.
2015 was 19.
Although in the
However, the presidency of Donald Trump is 90, and the presidency of Barack Obama was 17. But people were
El Normo. El Normo. Great clip there. I clipped you. You hit the nail on the head. It is about communication. He is in that he takes that role as like the speaker in that moment. And he's got Johnson and JD behind him. What do you think about him saying JD's now in charge of fighting fraud, waste, and corruption to help balance the books? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I was muted. Great idea, no? Why not?
Isn't that Kash Patel's fucking job? I mean, the vice president. I mean, it kind of seems like the vice president is like this, you know, like it seems almost like degrading in a way, you know, like what do you really do as the VP? I mean, I know you cast, you know, tie-breaking votes in the Senate, but it's kind of like don't outshine, you know, the master type of position. And so, like, what does that mean? He's the czar as the VP? Like, that's not typical, right?
Well, I think every once in a while people try to give the vice president something meaningful to do. I mean, look at Bush and Cheney.
Mm-hmm. Well, then that, I mean, at least they're getting on along then well, right? Like I think it's important to have your VP pick be your best friend and partner. And you can tell with Biden and Kamala, they weren't even on talking terms. Like he couldn't deal with her, and she, you know.
True?
You don't think that was true? I thought that was the truth.
I didn't know.
I thought that's what was happening between the two of them. Like they just avoided each other because they.
I mean, she's an impossible person. She was so rude at the Kavanaugh hearings that I thought they should have just pulled the plug on her, like turned off her mic. She was trying to stop the Kavanaugh hearings from proceeding. I remember. I was just shocked. And she was a new senator then, and she didn't seem to know she didn't get the social cues, you know, she didn't have the social skills right. She just kept interrupting and trying to shut it down. And she seemed like a difficult person to deal with. And there were reports of that. And again, her whole staff at some point or different points quit. So I don't know, but on the other hand, Biden also seemed to have had a stroke or something. It seemed also a little bit out to lunch.
Yeah.
So I regret that. I really do. I had high hopes for Biden, but I guess he reached his glass ceiling. Anyway, what was I thinking about? Yeah, it was good communication. I guess actually I probably was giving you a shout out when I said it's about communication, right? Because that's your thing. Yeah, if you have my clip, I'd love to have it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful.
Let me see.
I guess bouncing around the app, looking for a good conversation.
You know, it's interesting. Nobody ever calls President Trump John, but it's part of his name. And not many people know. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. He's a showman and he's a salesman, and he sold it last night. That was a master class in communication.
It was tremendous in that regard. Tremendous.
Yeah. And, John in Greek means Hermes, and Hermes is, the god of communication and intelligence. So from like a packet perspective, like he delivered the goods and he framed the Democrats, and he does this like whisper type of cute, like a bridge to the next statement and concept. And
with repetition.
Yeah, he's basically like a musician, and like he's got some mechanical problems, but for the most part, totally coherent. Hit a lot of nails on the head, knocked a lot of balls out of the park, and I'm just a fucking Animal House. Like, what is up with the guy who looks like a monkey pulling out a sign saying African Americans are not monkeys? Like,
Al Green. That's Al Green of Texas.
That's the second time he's been thrown. Is he deranged?
No. I don't know, but don't compare black folks to monkeys.
I'm not. I'm just saying that he had a sign that, I don't think it's projection, but like if you believe in evolution and you think that, there's no sky daddy and that we came out of tree nests, I mean, it's kind of funny that, what if what if we are monkeys? See, that was what had me dying on this app, because people kept screaming, I can't believe I have to defend the concept that I'm a monkey or I'm not a monkey. Like the comedy in that of like humans arguing about their monkey status is funny, but they don't realize that the whole thing about enlightenment is like, we do have this primal type of monkey response and monkey type of, consciousness that we have to transcend above through communication. And as you'll note, El Normo, many people on this app can't actually stop talking in a conversation to listen to what the other person is saying. And that to me is like so neurotic and such a waste of time and your own energy. And it creates all this friction and frustration. People just are really bad at communicating. And like that movie, Cool Hand Luke, what I think we have here is a failure to communicate. And,
I showed that to my kid not long ago. He was blown away. And that was made by the filmmaker. I have to remember his name now, but he was kind of a socialist, and this was meant to be socialist realism, social realism. And those actors, they literally worked in that heat. They weren't going into like air conditioned trailers and stuff. They were dealing with the mud and the labor and the heat that the convicts and prisoners were dealing with in that film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, I would say it's a masterpiece. It's an incredible and inspiring film. Sort of expression of 60s kind of rebellious spirit. I showed it to him. I showed him One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, another sort of people revolting against institutions.
Mm-hmm.
And, the individuals standing up against oppression. Jack Nicholson in Cuckoo's Nest, Paul Newman in Cool Hand Luke. And I'm sorry, anyway, I guess I'm off on a tangent on the communication subject. But
yeah, my dad showed me Cool Hand Luke when I was a kid, and he my dad showed me many, many movies. I grew up at Blockbuster. And I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, you fucked up. You raised me at Blockbuster. You should have raised me at the library. He said, I want my fucking money back. And but he showed me Cool Hand Luke, and that he felt that movie was very important, and I could see how, like, I don't know, my dad's very conservative, but that movie is kind of like a liberal liberal. I don't know. It's a very American film, but that scene when they're digging and that hot blonde is washing the car, like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, I mean, wow, what a that is like a hot piece of film. You know, that was an amazing, beautiful thing.
Also, when somebody they go up on the roof on a hot day, and they somehow somebody gets some beer, and they let them drink the beer. That was amazing. I mean, it's an amazing film, actually. Oh, there are a lot of amazing things. George York does a tremendous job. Paul Newman does an amazing job.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy, you know. It ends with the death of the hero. It's an impressive film.
It is. It is. Cool hand of.
And that's an okay way to educate you. I think he did a good job. I think that did a good job. My kid doesn't like to necessarily read, although I think he's coming to it on his own. He writes well, but he doesn't particularly care to read. And I think this is, movies are a very effective and powerful form of communication. And let's celebrate your dad.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to bounce around now. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, thank you, El Normo. The great El Normo!
All right, thanks.
You said no! And
You love Monica too. Don't you? Yes. That's okay. I'll take that.
Actually, it's not your shoe size, dude.
This is your
That's the first. That's fucking hilarious. What do you mean?
Speaking of boomers,
Funny on a daily basis, my brother.
Oh, Normal, you'd be happy to know that I went at it with Travis the other day.
What a schmuck this guy is.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Ribbon Shalom. I can't actually really play that room because of the prints in the background. Motherfucker. Did somebody step on a duck? Shouldn't have eaten all that salad. Okay, I'm just going to do some meditation music here. Hope you enjoy.
This bra is for seniors who want to get back their youth. Lift breasts right after first wear.
This is Guru Dev.
Believe in one secret, an ineffable Lord, and in one star in the company of stars of whose fire we are created, and to which we shall return, and in one Father of life, mystery of mystery, In his name, Chaos, the sole vice-regent of the sun upon the earth. And in one air, the nourisher of all that breathes. And I believe in one earth, the mother of us all. And in one womb wherein all men are begotten, and wherein they shall rest. Mystery of mystery. In her name, Babylon. And I believe in the serpent and the lion. Mystery of mystery. In his name, Raphael. And I believe in one Gnostic and Catholic Church of light, love and liberty, the word whose law is Tehillah. And I believe in the communion of saints. And for as much as meat and drink are transmuted in us daily into spiritual substance, I believe in the miracle of the Mass. And I confess one baptism of wisdom, whereby we accomplish the miracle of incarnation. And I confess my life one, individual, and eternal. That was